All right, welcome to the Explainer. Now, what if I told you that trauma doesn't actually define you? That all your problems are really about other people? And that happiness, well, it's a choice you can make, like right now. Sounds pretty out there, right? Well, today we're diving into the core ideas of the smash hit book, The Courage to be Disliked, which uses something called Adlerian psychology to completely flip the script on how we see our lives.
So the whole book is set up as this really cool back and forth, a dialogue between a pretty skeptical young person and a philosopher. And let me tell you, it challenges pretty much everything we think we know about our past, our emotions, and whether we can actually, change.
So let's kick things off with a question I think a lot of us wrestle with. Why is it so darn hard to change? You ever feel like that? Like you're trapped by your past, that your experiences have basically built this box around you, and that's just who you are now.
Okay, so the philosopher in the book comes out with this pretty wild idea. He says the world is astonishingly simple, and life itself is too. Basically, that life is simple, and happiness is right there for the taking, for everyone, right now. I know, it's a huge claim, so let's actually dig in and see how on earth that could be possible.
All right, first things first. We got to tackle the one huge idea that keeps so many of us stuck, and that's this belief that our past completely dictates our present.
And this brings us to a major clash of ideas in psychology. Think of it like two different camps. In one corner, you have etiology. That's the classic Freudian way of thinking, right? It says your past causes your present. I am this way because of what happened to me. But in the other corner, you have Adler's teleology. And this view argues that you're not driven by past causes at all. You're driven by the goals you have in the present.
And this is where things get really, really controversial. Adler's psychology straight up denies that trauma is the final, definitive cause of our problems. Instead, it says we make things out of our experiences. We actively choose the meaning we give to past events to help us achieve whatever it is we want to achieve right now.
So let's look at this example. The common story, etiology, would say a young man is a shut-in because of past trauma and anxiety. But Adlerian psychology, it just flips that whole idea on its head. It says no, the man has a goal to not go out, and so he manufactures the feeling of anxiety to give himself a good reason to stay inside. It's not the past causing the feeling, it's the present goal creating the feeling. I mean, that's a massive shift in how you look at things, right?
Okay, so this whole goal-oriented way of thinking, it doesn't just stop with our big life choices. It drills all the way down to our emotions. And that brings us to the next mind-bending idea. We are not controlled by our feelings.
I mean, think about it. The last time you got angry, really angry, did that emotion just happen to you? Did it just sweep over you totally out of your control? Or, and be honest, did you maybe use it for something?
The book gives this perfect example. Imagine a waiter accidentally spills coffee all over your brand new jacket. The normal explanation, etiology, is simple. The spilled coffee made me angry. But the teleological view, it says you fabricated anger. You whipped it up as a tool to achieve a goal, to make that waiter submit to you fast without the need for a calm, rational conversation. It's just like another story in the book where a mother is screaming at her daughter. Suddenly the phone rings. She picks it up, and instantly her voice is calm and polite. Hello? Then, as soon as she hangs up, boom, she's right back to yelling. It's proof. Anger is a tool. We can pick it up and put it down when we need to. It doesn't control us.
Okay, so if our past doesn't define us, and our emotions are just tools, then what is the real root of all our problems and unhappiness? Well, hang on, because this is where the philosophy gets even more radical.
And here it is. This is maybe the most important sentence in the whole book. All problems are interpersonal relationship problems. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. Adler's point is that if you were literally the only person in the entire universe, you wouldn't have any problems, right? There'd be no one to compare yourself to, no one to judge you, no one to fight with. Even something that feels so deeply personal, like a feeling of inferiority, that's a relationship problem too. You can only feel inferior if you're comparing yourself to someone else. And here's a key distinction. An inferiority complex isn't just feeling less than. It's when you start using that feeling as an excuse. Oh, I'm not educated enough, so I can't succeed. It's a way to avoid even trying. And why does this comparison stuff hurt so much? Because we're taught to see life as a giant competition. We look at other people as rivals, as enemies we have to beat. And when you live like that, of course you're going to be anxious and unhappy all the time. You're constantly at war.
But just imagine, what if you could just opt out of that competition? What if instead of seeing enemies, you saw comrades,
people on the same journey as you. The book argues that if you can make that mental switch, your entire world changes. It goes from being a scary, dangerous place to one that feels safe and supportive.
And that brings us to the final and honestly the most empowering piece of this whole puzzle. Because if our problems are all about our goals and our relationships, well, that means we're the ones holding the keys. The power to change is in our own hands.
This philosophy makes a really bold claim. You aren't unable to change. No one is. That feeling of being stuck, it's a story we tell ourselves.
So if we can change, why don't we? The book's answer is a little tough to hear. It's because you are making the decision not to change. You've made a subconscious choice that staying as you are, even if you're unhappy, is just easier and feels safer.
Adler has a term for your personality, your worldview, all your tendencies. He calls it your lifestyle. And he says you actually chose this lifestyle, probably when you were around 10 years old, and you've just been living it out ever since. But, and this is the really powerful part, if you chose it once, that means you have the power to choose a new one. Anytime, even right now.
Look, changing is terrifying, right? The future is a total mystery. It's often way more comfortable to stick with what you know, even if what you know is painful. And that's why the book says what you're lacking isn't the ability to be happy or the right circumstances. What you're lacking is the courage to be happy.
So the final question the book really leaves us with isn't about your past or even about how you feel today. It's about a decision. It's about the choice you're willing to make right here, right now. Do you have the courage to be happy?